Hello, everyone. We are getting started soon. We're just waiting for everyone to log in and join, so we'll just give that a few minutes. Hello. Tim, we have a message from a student at RIT. Yes, hello. Lisa, hello. Okay, great. I see the message from Ashley. That's nice. Hello. Okay, so we have opened up the room so people will start entering. Tim, just to let you know, people will be joining throughout and maybe a little bit late, but we can go ahead and get started. Tim says no problem. All right, so for those of you who are just joining and don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Natalie Delgado, Director of Outreach for Louisiana School for the Deaf, and oversee our students for ages 0 to 22, deaf and hard of hearing students all across the state. I serve families and students and professionals who are deaf and hard of hearing and who serve our deaf and hard of hearing students as well. So that's my role. I'm hosting the Family Workshop series and this event tonight, and I'm really excited to have all of you here joining us, and I'm excited to have Tim Albert joining us tonight. And he will explain your deaf child's rights, which is a very important topic. I'm happy to have him here with us. So before we transition to Tim, I want to share a few things before we begin. So if you have any questions or issues with technology, anything that you need from Zoom itself, please direct message me in the chat and I'll be happy to help. If you have any questions for Tim throughout the presentation, he may overlook them because he's about to start sharing his screen. So instead, you can type them in the chat for him. And at the end of the presentation, he will answer your questions. And then also we'll open up at the end of the presentation for any additional questions as well. So from now on, to help with spotlighting Tim, we'll make sure everyone turns off their videos and mutes their microphones. So please go ahead and turn off your cameras. All good. Okay. Now, Tim, the star of the show, I'll turn it over to you and you can share your screen and I will pop off. But if anyone needs me, I will still be here. So please send me a message in the chat and I'll show up at the end if anyone wants to talk more. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Natalie. Just a moment. Okay. Hello. Hello, everyone. First, I want to make sure that you're able to see me on Spotlight. So I see some thumbs up. Great, great. First of all, I have to say thank you to Dr. Natalie Delgado for reaching out to me to give a presentation to students, parents, and community members. I feel so honored. and I am proud because I am a graduate of Louisiana School for the Deaf, LSD. I graduated in 1991. And again, I am so impressed that LSD's outreach department is spotlighting and teaching students and parents and community members. It's so impressive and it's so good to know. I'm going to go ahead and start to share my screen, and I want to make sure that you can see me and the PowerPoint. So let's see if it works. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Okay, some can't see. I want to look at the chat and make sure that people can see before I begin. Okay, I see some comments from the chat. Okay, let's talk about Louisiana. This is my sign for Louisiana. And this is spelled out. This is Louisiana, the LA sign, Deaf Child's Bill of Rights. And I'm happy to talk about this topic, which is very important. It's about your deaf child's rights from now and throughout their learning, learn how to support themselves and those parents who have deaf, deaf-blind, hard of hearing children in the state of Louisiana. The reason why I put a heart on this PowerPoint is because we love our students in the state of Louisiana. It's important to educate and empower the children to learn everything they can before they graduate from high school. A child has a right to know what to do. It's so important. Let me move to the next slide. Wonderful. Take a moment to read this slide. What is a deaf child's Bill of Rights? So you'll take a moment to read this, and I'll also sign this to you. Louisiana joined 15 other states to support a deaf child's Bill of Rights. This bill is to ensure that all students, including deaf, deaf-blind, and hard of hearing, receive appropriate communication accessibility, language acquisition, better education, meaningful skills, resources, and services. It's important for you to know with this statement to be responsible and make sure that at Louisiana School for the Deaf or other schools, they meet the needs of the students who are deaf, deaf-blind, or hard of hearing. And with various modes of communication. Okay, so here, I'm reading the Bill of Rights, which is from the Louisiana State Legislative. I I will show you, this is what the paper looks like, the actual bill, okay? Before you start reading, I'm not sure if you have already heard of the Louisiana Deaf Child's Bill of Rights, or if you have never heard of this before. Last week, I developed a survey to be sent out to those who graduated from either LSSD, Louisiana State School for the Deaf, SSD, Southern School for the Deaf, and the current school, Louisiana School for the Deaf. I sent out the survey with or without deaf children, and sent to parents who are either deaf or hearing who have children who are currently attending LSD. And so I have a pretty good number of responses, and most said that they did not know more about Louisiana Deaf Child Bill of Rights. And so that's fine. That was good information to know. This bill was passed in 2015, called Louisiana Senate Bill number 258 or 58. So now take a moment to read this. This is RS 1960, the Deaf Child's Bill of Rights legislative recognition. The Louisiana Association of the Deaf and the United States Congress recognize that children who are deaf, hard of hearing, now they needed to add deaf blind, so it was deaf and hard of hearing, so they added deaf blind, who utilize one or more modes of communication like English, American Sign Language, PSE, which is pigeoned, exact English signing, so different modes of communication, have the same rights and potential to become independent. Oh, that's so important. Independent and self-actualizing as children who are not deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf blind. They should have the same rights as those who are not. They should be treated the same. Just the same. For example, have full communication access, have the same services, whether they are deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf blind or not. One cannot be inferior to the others. Deaf and hearing should have the same rights for better education for their futures. Therefore, the legislature recognizes the Deaf Child's Bill of Rights as follows, and I have many important points for you all to learn and understand and be prepared to advocate for your child, so you can sit down and have a conversation with your child daily to help improve. I know that you can't afford to leave your child before graduation and not sure what to do, but that's okay. We and our families, parents, friends, LSD faculty, staff, dorm staff are happy to help. That is no question. And so after this, I will send you a link where you will be able to find more information in depth about this bill. So now let me explain each of these points. I want to make sure that I've complete this presentation by 6:40. So let me look at the time. Oh, it's already 6:16. Time flies. Let's keep going. We're switching interpreters.
First, we have deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf-blind child's right to receive appropriate screening, assessment, communication, and language. That's from birth. When a child is born, you might take them to a doctor or an audiologist to see if the child has hearing loss, to test their hearing and make sure to have the appropriate placement for them in school. Children have the right to determine what is the best fit for them for school. And secondly, deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf-blind child has a right to receive language acquisition. Language acquisition is imperative. I will share my experience with you. Language is important, as I said. Whether a child is deaf, deaf-blind, hard of hearing, or hearing, language is a necessity. It must be the same access. It must. And the third, parents' rights to be fully informed about placement considerations for a deaf, hard of hearing, deaf-blind child, and become involved in the child's educational plan. It is important for parents to be involved with IEP meeting, the individual educational plan, to make plans for their child's future. That's something that cannot be overlooked. Schools are always happy to help in different ways and offer different resources to help support your deaf child. And fourth, deaf, hard of hearing, deaf-blind child's right to meet role models who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf-blind for advocacy skills. It's important because your deaf child needs someone to look up to, someone they can meet and feel they have something in common with. The adult can help the child and help the child to feel better and not feel so isolated. It's important to have deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind have role models that they can meet at their school. And fifth, deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind child right to meet their peers in the school environment during sponsored activities. Your child needs to make friends to be able to interact with others during activities such as basketball games, at meetings where parents are involved, any kind of social activity. In the next slide. Number 6. Well, for time's sake, I'm going to summarize. To communicate, to make sure you have a qualified teacher, interpreter, counselor, including different modes of communication. Faculty, staff at the school must have effective communication in order to accommodate your child. So it's important that they have the receptive skills and expressive skills. That language acquisition. To communicate using sign language is so important. And number 7, have a communication plan within the IEP, the Individualized Education Program, and the Individual Accommodation Plan, meaning the school has all of that ready. Parents can look over the plan and help determine the student's needs when it comes to communication, language, and accessibility, and make sure the school is meeting the child's needs based on the current language and communication needs of the student. And the student should participate in all different aspects of their education, whether it be academics, studying, socializing, vocational training. That all can be in their communication plan, whether or not they have a cochlear implant, whether or not they use sign language, or if they use spoken language. All of that will be in the plan to help the school accommodate the students' needs. Number 8, placement. The right to receive placement that will provide the child with their individual needs, social, emotional, cultural needs, is so important. A child needs to know and learn and grow and learn about themselves and be able to assess themselves and learn who they are through their communication and their social life, and to be able to be happy. They could go on to become a photographer, a social worker, and they need that support, the child, so they can feel good about themselves. Family support is so important. At home, when children go home from school, if they're at a school for the deaf, a dorm student, when they come home on the weekend, parents can sit down with their child and have a good support system at home. Spend time with their child. And there are various kinds of hearing loss with different modes of communication, family support, and degree and type of hearing loss. And then we have free and appropriate education. So your child goes into school to learn and get an education. The teachers are there and ready to teach. Everything from A to Z. Not a shortened form A to J, but a thorough education before the child graduates. Okay, great. And now number 10. Your child has the right to receive full support services and technical assistance. Your child might, whatever they disclose that they might need help with, and technical assistance, meaning educational assistance, tutoring, after school activities, vocational training, all of those kinds of supports and technical supports to help your child, help them to grow. Number 11, of course, they must have full access to all programs with no limits or restrictions. Depending, if a student takes a class for the entire day, you have to make sure to meet the requirements for their graduation plan. Make sure that they do meet all of the expectations before graduation, and then your child will know what to do when they leave and go off to college or find a job. Number 12, it's important your child has a right to know information about their medical, cultural, and linguistic issues. During an IEP meeting, ask the IEP team, ask the child, what do you want? Ask the child how they identify themselves as deaf, and that way the child can learn and grow and draw them out. The IEP team, the parents, they are always ready and willing to listen to what a student wants. You just have to spit it out. And number 13, it's important to have community members to support the school, community members from outside the school. When I went into the school to check it out, it really inspired me to continue going to that school and receive my education there. one of the students, I asked, "Are you doing okay? You're all right?" And they said, "Yeah." I asked them what they thought of the school, and I am 100% an advocate of LSD. So it's important to make sure to meet the educational requirements and expectations. Okay. Now, I've talked about the importance of each one of these things under the Louisiana Deaf Child Bill of Rights. And I hope that's helped you to understand that's not the only law that there is, the Bill of Rights. There are other laws as well that are in place to support your child. I'm sure you're familiar with the IDEA, Individual with Disabilities Education Act. The IDEA is a law about education for your child, a law that meets the specialized needs and instruction for your child and related services in order to provide education. And it's free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment to support your child. For an example, if a child was in a mainstream school using an interpreter, or if they were at the school for the deaf, having those supports. And those special education services range from ages 3 to 21. That is IDEA. And the next law that we have is the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Section 504. That is a civil rights law dealing with accommodations and modifications, accessibility. It could be the doors, the flashing lights. And it prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in programs and activities that receive federal assistance from the Department of Education. That is the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And the last law, whoops, okay, got it. Wanted to make sure I didn't mess up my PowerPoint. And the last one is the Americans with Disability Act, ADA, which surely you're all familiar with. And that is also a civil rights law dealing with accommodations for people who are looking for a job or in a hospital setting, having that access to communication, having a right, for an example, to have an interpreter. I will share my experience with you as well about having an interpreter. And it says people with disabilities must be provided equal opportunity for participating in both public and private institutions. And let's hold while we switch interpreters.
All right, so those are three laws: IDEA, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and this ADA that support the deaf child at school. Of course, remember, there are local, state, and federal laws. Next slide. Now let's take a minute to think about this. Just like those hearing students, I want to make sure that all deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing students must have the same rights and deserve equal access to educational needs or resources. And I'll be sharing my experiences with you about attending various mainstreamed schools and LSD with and without benefits. Benefits, that's an important word. Mhm. So here I want to emphasize that I'm not talking about my past experience at a mainstream school as negative, but I wanted to share what I have seen and learned from my past. I don't want to compare your current child to my past, but it's important that your child's rights um, are discussed. And what I want to tell you is that your child can start to grow and learn to read and research to become a successful person like I have become. So I remember when I was in a mainstream school, I went to college, and so I went to college and I learned about how to write about my past and the discrimination that I had experienced because I was deaf. And then after I went into a mainstream school, I learned and I put some notes down to share with you. Some communication barriers, of course, existed. For example, I signed, and there were some teachers who did not have a great signing uh, ability. So it was very hard for me to understand them. And I missed many key words. I didn't have that language expressed to me. I had barriers. I had I have a 120 decibel over 120 decibel loss in both of my ears. So I am completely, profoundly deaf. I became very frustrated. It was not easy. I needed to communicate. And with my family, I'm the only deaf member in the entire hearing family. My family created and learned what's called home signs that is not like American Sign Language or English. So my family invented their own signs and gestures. And so, like they tapped me on the shoulder to pay attention. They wrote in English, so I would look at written English, but I didn't understand what it meant. Went right over my head, and so I was very frustrated when I was a little kid. I would tap people on the shoulder, for example. I would use a gesture for a need I had. And I felt like I had communication through gestures. And then my family was frustrated, and they tried to put me in a school where I needed to learn. But again, the teachers didn't sign so well. I would say lousy. And it was very difficult. Me and my peers, we would talk amongst each other and try to find some new friends to
Yep.
discuss what we were learning. And the mainstream school was in New Orleans. This was in New Orleans before I attended Louisiana School for the Deaf. And so, yes. Testing audio. Testing. Okay.
Oh, it might have like muted it for all of us.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, great. So without making decisions, I didn't have the language to make those decisions. So my parents made those decisions for me. I had not learned. I didn't have the opportunity to learn. I had to go home. I sat alone while my parents and family members talked amongst themselves. I was alone, and I saw that growing up. And I remember as a young child, this was my experience. As far as language deprivation, again, I'm telling you, I was deprived of language. In the mainstream setting, I looked at a word that was written and it went right over my head. But I was able to communicate in sign language. I didn't know the written words. And so last, no sports allowed. I never will forget that moment when I went to high school in New Orleans and I saw the football team. And so I thought, why not? I met with the head football coach and told them that I would join the football team. And my head coach was unsure if a deaf person was allowed to play. But the head coach went to go to see a doctor and asked, can a deaf person play football? And the doctor told the head coach, no. So then I was told, no, you can't play football due to my deafness. That is discrimination. I didn't understand. And then I went home and told my mom that I was not allowed to play football. And oh, my mom flipped her lid. She was so angry. And then, okay, last, no deaf, blind, hard of hearing role models at my mainstream school. There were none. I'll tell you, there were none. So that shows my frustration. I had no rights. I was confused. I'm deaf and I learned a little bit, but not a great amount. I learned a little bit. And then there was one person who transferred to the mainstream school from Louisiana School for the Deaf. And I said, who are you? And they said, I got kicked out from Louisiana School for the Deaf. And I said, what's Louisiana School for the Deaf? Oh, it's the deaf school. I said, wait, what? I said, what's the deaf? There's a deaf school? Where? Oh, yeah, it's in Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge? There's a deaf school in Baton Rouge? Yes, and there are deaf teachers, and there's football, and there's basketball. Wait a minute, I thought he was making up the whole story. And so then I transferred to LSD. And so here begins this story. Well, remember, I believed what my friend was trying to explain about LSD. But like I said before, I did graduate from LSD in 1991. How long had I been at LSD? Three years. I had 3 years there. When I went into LSD, it was a whirlwind of a culture shock. And I had never seen I hadn't seen anything like this in my entire life. Full communication, accessibility. It was the richest language with sign language, with culture. It was perfect communication access. At my mainstream school, there was an interpreter who was below par. And then at this Louisiana School for the Deaf, I was so busy. I had so many new friends and I became overwhelmed and so excited. Oh, I was so excited. I had communication and sign language and I started to learn. My signing at the mainstream school was more English based. For example, I'll show you an example. I am doing, with ing emphasized, fine. That's English word order that I'm signing. I am going to the store period. At Louisiana School for the Deaf, at LSD, it's different. It was a different structured grammar called American Sign Language. I go store fine. You know, that's how you sign it in ASL grammar. I never seen the facial expressions, the language, everything shifted. My body changed positions. And so at my former school, my body was basically cold, like a robot. So it was basically a robot. And LSD, it changed with my culture. I used my whole body in sharing my language. What's up? Oh, yeah, no, that's those different idioms and cultural phrases. I went to IEP meetings and they told me, you can say. I said, wait, I can say? I can say as it pertains to my education? I was nervous. And they said, you can say what you want. Do you want to play basketball? You want to play football? Yes, I do. We will put that down. A transition plan. What do you want? What's a transition plan? Well, it means what you plan on doing before you graduate and where you want to go after you graduate. Do you want to find a job? Do you want to go to college? I felt inspired thanks to my teachers and my advisors, my football head coach. I acquired language. I used my eyes and I acquired so much language over 3 years. I participated in sports. Finally, I was allowed to participate in any sport I wanted. Football, basketball, weightlifting, and cross country. Wow. And finally, I met deaf and hard of hearing and deafblind role models. And there were some people who visited the deaf school to deliver some presentations, and they shared their experiences in their life and their travels, and it blew my mind. My mind was just blown. And the last thing, I was accomplished as an LSD student and athlete. I learned balance and time management in sports and academics. And that truly helped me to grow in my self-esteem with my experiences and my skills and understand my rights. It was my right. It was great. Okay, looking at time, let's keep going. Facts. It's so important for parents. My mother told me she kept fighting. She kept fighting with state legislature, with the teachers, with the IEP team, and kept nudging. I want my son to go to the deaf school. They told her no. They told her no, that he needs to stay at one of those mainstream schools in New Orleans. I had no idea. I had no idea until I graduated from college and I went and had the opportunity to sit down and talk with my mother. And I said, "Can you tell me what you remember about my childhood and what happened?" And she explained this to me. Oh, it just lit a fire in me. I was so upset. But I thanked my mother so much. I love her so much. She fought for me. Therefore, you as parents can fight for your children. Second, like I said before, when I went into LSD, I was shocked. I was shocked because while I was in a mainstream school, I didn't learn anything. I was not exposed or had an opportunity to know. This was so fortunate for me to know at LSD. For example, if I had not gone to LSD and had graduated from a mainstream school, I could have ended up living on the street. Who knows? But LSD pushed me to a successful education and I learned my rights. And the last thing, it is good to know that your deaf, deafblind, or hard of hearing children are or is protected in the bill. That is crucial. These are the facts. Now, what can you do for your child? Be familiar with the laws, those 3 I shared. To help, you should talk with your child before your child graduates from school. Yes, talk with your child, and I'm pretty sure, you say, I'm pretty sure you're getting the right information from LSD outreach department, or the IEP team, or the teachers. Contact them to support your child. Get available resources that help you support your child. Attend various activities, events, and sport. Well, not now, I get it. It's my understanding that due to COVID, I understand that these are limited, but You can attend some events on Zoom. But I pray, oh, let's just hold off for 1 second so we can switch interpreters.
I pray that COVID numbers come down, and that's when you would have an opportunity to go to the School for the Deaf and watch sports and participate in different activities. I remember my parents coming to the School for the Deaf, to LSD, a few times. They didn't come often, but that's better than not coming at all. I'm happy that my parents did take the effort to come and see me. It was 50 miles from New Orleans to Baton Rouge for them to come and see me. Number five, read with your child. Show your child pages and ask them if they know what that is. Language acquisition. Children need that exposure. The dictionary is my best friend. That's where I learned so much at LSD. In fact, I started reading and writing when I was 16. Believe it or not, 16. I asked my mother and she said, no, I think you were like 14. I guess mom maybe knows more than I do. Learn communication strategies, whether it be verbal or using sign language or writing or gesturing. Use different communication strategies. My parents came up with their own home sign, but what's important is communication. Check closed captioning. You know, back in my day watching TV, we didn't have captioning, but now the technology is out there. So make sure to turn your closed captioning on the TV. That will help with language acquisition. Last and most importantly, build a support system and get support from others. Now, a question. Where can I find support for your child? There are different nonprofit organizations listed here, community members. They have events, workshops, trainings, meetings, various ways. I will send that list to Dr. Natalie Delgado, and she will share that with all of you, and you can look over those resources. There's Louisiana Association for the Deaf, Louisiana School for the Deaf. There are several links there where you can find support for your child. And again, there's more supports on this page. Thank you. Ooh, 7:50. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. All right. And this is Dr. Delgado. Thank you for sharing your experience. Okay, I'm spotlighted. Thank you for sharing your experience, and your story was really wonderful to hear about what happened with you, your life experiences. I'm happy that LSD worked out for you. I want to acknowledge some families that are here. Some of their children are in mainstream schools. So I want to recognize that people have different modes of communication and different schooling experiences. So I want to make sure that you all are here and we all make our own informed decisions for our children. So now I want to open up the floor for questions. If anyone wants to ask me or Tim any questions, feel free to type it in the chat, or you can turn on your camera, sign if you prefer to. If you're going to sign your question or your comment, please wait for the spotlight. So I see someone here, Christine, is ready for a question. Let's spotlight Christine. And Tim says, hi. And Christine says, hi, Tim. Thank you for your presentation. My name is Christine. I wanted to ask a question. If I want to be a school counselor, how can I advocate for a student whether either social emotional learning, how can I advocate for that with that journey for that student? If a student is coming in to a school for the deaf from a mainstream school, how can I offer supports to them and help them to be prepared for the educational process of the social emotional learning? You know what I mean? Can you sign that question again? Okay, yes, I'll sign it again. This is Christine. So thank you for sharing your journey from transferring from a mainstream school to a school for the deaf. I'm going to be a counselor soon. How can I better support students who are coming from the mainstream environment into the school for the deaf and their social emotional needs? You know, and the change culturally, that big change, how can I better support them? And have parents be more aware of the difference that their student would be experiencing in the new environment. And Tim said, okay, I can answer that. I'll wait for the spotlight. Excellent question. Good to see you, Christine. And congratulations. I hope you do become a counselor soon. When you do become a counselor, depending on what school system you're in, or whether you're in a mental health facility. For an example, if you were to get a job at a school, then that's perfect. You can talk to the IEP team if a student is transferring in from a mainstream program and talk about the child's background, their emotional state, including their needs. And that way you will know better how to work with that child. And Christine said, thank you. Perfect. You're welcome, Christine. And hold on 1 second. I see someone else has a question. There was some in the chat already. One person, Leah, said about mainstream environment. And then we have from Erica saying, thank you for sharing your experience. And I had the same experience, mainstream through middle school and high school. And the only difference is that I got to LSD for the first time for work. And it was a culture shock for me. And it was a great learning experience. And then Caitlin said, what is your advice for up and coming deaf education? What is something you hope to see more in classrooms? Wait for the spotlight. Yes, my advice is check on the state where you live. For example, the state of Louisiana, reach out to nonprofit organizations for help. I'm happy to come and give a presentation at your school and have an opportunity to meet others. I know with the pandemic, you will need to check with the school, with the nonprofit organizations, reach out to those that can offer supports to the child. As I said, parents need help and support from others. Okay, and then Natalie. Okay, and then we have a question from Lumika, but I think she's frozen. So we're gonna give her a moment to see if we can get her back. Lumika will wait for you while we're waiting for you to clear up. We will look at a question in the chat from Harley. What is your advice for hearing parents how to make your child's life as accessible as possible, either it be at doctors or school or just at a function? For hearing parents, get in contact with LSD, get a support team to help you out. Resources, find out what resources are out there, check links that are in those resources that I listed. And find out what you need to do to graduate. I know sometimes that, you know, kids are nervous about their graduation, but you can reach out to the IEP team and find out list of resources and know what to do moving forward. And have that conversation, work together, build a good rapport. Okay. And this is Natalie. I wanted to mention too to Harley. Yes, we do see you, Lumeki, just 1 second. I also wanted to acknowledge if you're interested in technology, we have a webinar already on LSD website that talks about accessing technology for your home, like a doorbell that's attached to a flashing light, or a flashing light that is attached to your fire alarm to make your home accessible to your child. And there's other webinars too that are on our website already. So feel free to look those over and see if there's some that would help you. We do have resources as well that I can send to you if you reach out to me. Lumaki, are you ready? And she said, yes. You're freezing up just a little bit, just so you know. And it's freezing up. This is Natalie. It's hard to see. This is Natalie. Just to let you know, it's really hard to make out what you're signing because of the video quality. Can you type it in the chat?
Oh, we have to say hello. I see someone on the screen that wants to say hi. I recognize somebody or something. Do you want to introduce yourself and ask something? If you want, you can talk.
I'm getting really,
Spotlight.
really,
Do you want to ask a question?
yes. What school can I go to help me hear better and sign, please?
Yeah, that you did great.
That is an excellent question. I wish you the best to find the right school that fits you so that you can hear. I'm sure that's somewhere. Talk to your parents to reach out to see what fits you best in hearing and talking. I'm sure there's a school in your area. I wish you the best of luck. And what's your name? Evie? Yeah. It's nice to meet you, Evie. Hopefully someday I can meet you in person.
I did not hear some word.
She said, "It's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you." You can say, tell him, "Nice to meet you."
Oh, great. Bravo. Thank you. Thumbs up to you.
So bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
There's another question. Bye. There's another question
I don't know how to turn it off.
or comment from someone called Harley. That would be great. We are learning ASL, but with COVID, it's hard to get face-to-face in practice. And he's only 1, almost 2. I just wanted to give him the most access to everything. So as my other 2 children. Okay, let me just briefly look at that chat question. Hi. Oh, there we are. Okay, I know that it's hard for you to face you. He's 1 and to be contacting parents. I'm sure you have used Zoom in making new friends and have had the opportunity for your child to see the daily ABC stories that are signed in ASL or Zoom. Today access via Zoom is great. So your child is at LSD now, correct? Oh, no. Oh, okay. That's fine. That's fine. Contact parents and friends, and I'll send you a list of links to connect on YouTube. There are various YouTube links where your child can watch them with mom, songs and signs and talking. Okay. And Natalie will add. I also wanted to add for you, Harley, if you wanted to learn more sign language or find some sign stories, there are different videos and story time. But if you also look at LSD's website and click on outreach, click on resources for families. And from there, click on favorite ASL resources. There are many resources where you can learn sign language in general, like the websites and apps and different things. Plus, there are YouTube channels that we have vetted ourselves to make sure that they're signing appropriately and accurately. So I suggest that you look there. That would be perfect because there are a lot of cute little stories that are relayed for your son to watch. Okay, great. There's a comment in the chat from Kristen Williams. Thank you, Tim, for sharing your experiences and your perspectives are helpful. Next, we have Isabella, who says, I am currently a deaf student in college right now. I believe older deaf students are more independent and we are able to be on our own and advocate for ourselves. We do also have programs that check in on us at times. I'm more concerned with the younger generation because I believe there are struggles or they're struggling with the school system right now on getting their accessibilities. They really need guidance and more advocates. What is the plan for them in regards to that? So yes, I did visit several deaf schools. Not only that, but mainstream schools, because I love to. I work under K-12 school systems for almost 12 years, and I've seen where there are needs to improve for better education for the students, who have frustrations, especially with a small number of students at a school, depending on where they are. For example, at Texas School for the Deaf, they have a large number of students. At Louisiana School for the Deaf, they have a small number of students. And I noticed that there are a lot more students in the mainstream setting. And in talking with teachers, well, let me just say that we have a small number of teachers here in America who are deaf teachers. So we have that's a small number. We need to recruit, we need to access. I'm concerned about the younger generation. The younger generation, well, it's different than how it was in my time. So technology is soaring, and then you're having a lesser number now than before in the deaf schools. So I want to check in on those schools. Sometimes the parents need help, and it's not easy. But hopefully, so we can support our younger generation and parents as well. I do check in and talk with my former principals and superintendents. I love those schools, and that's key. We need to check in on our younger generation. I'm happy to know that you are a current college student. That's great to know that. Okay, so now I see Harley says, thank you all for the information and encouragement. He will be going to LSD, and hopefully in August will be at the new Early Childhood Education Center. And hopefully he does not pass me up in ASL because he's doing amazing. Thank you. Happy to hear that, Harley. So I do want to share with you that we have run out of time. So we need to wrap up. I'll go ahead and allow Tim to share his email and contact information in the chat, and plus share those links and information related to the Deaf Child Bill of Rights. So if anyone has any questions that they didn't get to ask, you can contact him in email, and I'll also share my email in the chat for those of you who need it. Okay, so Tim, would you mind copying that link to the Deaf Child Bill of Rights? Okay, just a moment. Christine says thank you, Natalie, for this, and LSD too. Thank you so much for everything, and hearts to you. Okay, so families, you can see that information to the Deaf Child Bill of Rights, and Tim has just sent it in the chat. If you all are watching from RIT, other states have this. If you are unsure where to find this information, I suggest that you look at NAD, National Association for the Deaf. There is information about other states' Deaf Child Bill of Rights. Okay, so thank you all for watching, and thank you so much, Tim, for coming. Thank you for sharing your experience. It was great to know. All right, and thank you, interpreters and SSD team, for the support here tonight. We'll go ahead and wrap up, and Tim says I'll wait until everyone leaves, and then we'll chat.